And also, we encourage you to use the chat icon on your screen to send us any questions or comments that you may have. We will be taking questions throughout the presentation, but we will be addressing the questions at the end since our presenter is joining us remotely today. So again, thank you all for joining us, and just make sure that you all should be muted, but if you are not muted for whatever reason, make sure to mute yourself and make sure that your audio is on just in case you cannot hear us. Today's webinar is titled Si Se Puede, Building Trust and Relationships. Generally, as faculty, staff, program leaders, and other educators, we like to think that all of our students trust us. We self-identify as open and welcoming in class and other roles, and our doors open and have our doors open while during office hours. But it is not always enough, especially in an age of increasing fear and distress, as fears of deportation and obstacles obtaining DACA status increase. Hispanic, Latino, Latinx students often have questions about their academic futures that go unasked because they are unsure of who they can trust. At a minimum, students fear they will be judged for their status or at worst, reported for their status or lack thereof. In this session, through examining our current practices, we will explore best practices for building trust with Hispanic, Latinx students. Additionally, we will cover some important information to be aware of when advising students who are children of immigrants, immigrants with DACA status, and undocumented students as they navigate financial aid and residency status, scholarships, and career choices. From stickers to organizations to school-wide events to mentoring, we will discuss a path for establishing and building trust with our Hispanic, Latinx students on an individual level and campus-wide. Today's presenter is Surry Wright. Surry Wright is the lead instructor for humanities in the Community Spanish Interpreter Program and teaches English, Humanities, and Political Science at Surry Community College. Surry also leads the Advocates for Global Education and on campus and leads the school's Counselor of Global Distinction Program. Surry holds undergraduate degrees in Political Science and History, a Master's of Fine Arts in Creative Writing, a Master of Science in Political Science, and a graduate certificate in National Security and Intelligence, and she's currently working on a PhD in Educational Leadership and Cultural Foundations. Prior to her 10 years in community college instruction, Surry worked first in investments, training new employees and college interns, and then in medical research project management. Her interests and focus in the community college setting are focused on recruiting, access, and success of students. I want to thank Surry Wright for agreeing to provide this presentation for us all, and Surry has a wealth of knowledge that she's going to be sharing with all of us. So Surry, I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to allow you to take on the presentation.
I'm not an expert. I try. And I don't know everything. These efforts that we have undertaken at Surry Community College are continuous, and they're not singular. There are a lot of people who are involved in helping with our efforts. And I will make some generalizations today, and I know that population and students cannot be lumped together. They're not absolutes. They're not all the same. So forgive the generalizations, but they are a good launching point for us. Some of you may ask why me, why I'm working hard toward this with this population, but I would argue why not me, and I would also say why not you. But I have tried to think about why I am passionate about this, and someone pointed out a need. And so that obviously started it. And then I also think because I spent the first 20 years of my life with very little knowledge of my own cultural identity, so I understand the concept of not belonging. And I want to eliminate that some of our Hispanic, Latino, and Latinx students some of those feelings that they have. And they do belong in higher education, and we need to make easy access for them, or certainly the same access as everyone else. So, I'm in a little bit of trouble here. Okay. So, our objectives: understand concerns unique to Latinx students, gain some techniques for building trust, and be aware of some of the nuances that exist for attending higher education institutions for this group of students. You will notice in this presentation that I do use Hispanic, Latino, and Latinx interchangeably. When I'm speaking to a group, I try to use all of those terms because I realize that people in the group often want to be referred to as one of those. Not everyone wants to be referred to as the same thing, so I try to be respectful of that. And I have heard many debates about what the appropriate term is. I don't have an opinion about that. I just firmly believe if someone says, this is what I want you to refer to me as, then that's the least that we can do, is actually call people what they want to be called. So you'll see that pretty interchangeably today. So the first thing that I would like for you to do is I would like for you to think about obstacles that your students may face. So maybe just jot down a few obstacles that you think any student may face. Now I'd like to take it a step further and ask you to jot down obstacles that you think may be unique to your Hispanic, Latino, Latinx students. Okay, now I want to set the stage for what we would be doing if we were face-to-face having this conversation today. I would ask you to stand up or at least move away from any desk that you were sitting behind, and I would give you a set of instructions. The instructions would be to throw the balls around, these foam globe balls. I would introduce probably two in the beginning and then a third one, and I would give you some specific instructions. I would say maybe throw the ball to someone at least 3 places away from you. Do not throw the ball to anyone that you've thrown the ball to before, and whatever you do, don't let the balls hit the ground. Later I would introduce some more. But while this is happening, there'd be a lot of things going on in the background, a lot of information overload. So I have tried to replicate that a little bit for us today, and something that would work in a webinar. So we'll see how it works out. Bear with me here. So think of yourself as being in that room, being told to throw, let's say, maybe 4 balls around, and not throw it to anyone twice, not to drop the ball. They're at least 3 places away from you. Okay, I had the video playing. I think you probably could not hear that. So when you have access to this, then go back and try to, think about what it would have been like if you were throwing the balls around, listening to the song, also seeing another video. So that's okay. So how many words do you remember? Just think about it. You don't have to answer. You can if you want, but did you know the language some of the words were in? So the language other than English was Cherokee, and even if you knew the words, did you know what all of the words meant? And I think that this obviously does not replicate what our students feel, but I think we can get an idea, certainly an analogy to that. Did you feel the pressure not to drop the ball? And I think, that's something we have to acknowledge with our students. The words were coming across the screen at different speeds. There was a reason for that. You're not sure what's important when you're hearing a lot of information. Is it the things that people say slowly? Is it the things they just mention? So I think these are a lot of the obstacles that our first generation students might face. Also think that using math for me, that's like another language, so that's one of the reasons I use math terms. Even if you know what the word even if you know what the word is, you may not know what it means. You may not know why it's important to you. So I just ask you to keep the situation that many of our students are in mind as we go through some of these events that I'm going to talk about. So everything that I am telling you, there are things that we've done at Surry Community College. I firmly believe that it could be applied to any school. Just want to show you where we are. We are on the Virginia border. We are here, Surry and Yadkin County. We are located in Dobson, North Carolina, which is in Surry County, but our service area is Surry and Yadkin County. We are an extremely conservative part of the state. We have campuses, like I said, Dobson's our main campus. We have another campus in Yadkinville, and then we have other centers in Surry County, in Mount Airy, Pilot Mountain, and Elkin. So I am a Surry County native. I have been many other places, and Surry County looks a lot different than it did when I left in 1995 when I graduated from high school. When I graduated from high school, there were no Hispanic or Latino students in my graduating class. There were Hispanic and Latino students in the school system, but they were much younger. We do have a long history of Hispanic Latino influence in the area. We were an area that was extremely rooted in agriculture, so we've had migrant workers. I can remember people speaking Spanish and being around Hispanic and Latino people as early as maybe 4 or 5 years old, but they weren't here all the time. They weren't this was not their home. Things have really changed, which I will talk about quite a bit as we continue, because I think the demographic picture is really important when we're looking at building trust and relationships. So Surry County has 72,000 people. Just under 11% are captured as Hispanic and Latino in terms of demographics. Yadkin County, 37,500, and 11% Hispanic and Latino. As we know, there certainly are barriers to accurate numbers of demographics, which I will cover just a little bit later. I have this quote here because I think it's really important. We're looking at large numbers and we're looking at people as a whole, but I think it's imperative that we think of it in these terms as well. It's very important to create a climate, create initiatives and activities so you're not only recruiting, you retain and graduate them, and that's referring to Hispanic and Latino students. And it's the Dean of Texas State University College of Applied Arts. So our campus demographics, we are 17% Hispanic, Latino, Latinx. Obviously, we do have students who do not mark anything when they are applying. I would imagine many of those based on some fear may not mark Hispanic or Latino as when they're applying. But 17% is our official number. As we mentioned, there are barriers to the complete demographic picture. From my experience, people students aren't sure if they can trust the school. Are we an extension of a government entity that may not want what's best for them? And that's one of the things that we are trying to minimize. So the average Hispanic and Latino population in my classes, it's about 40%. I've polled a few colleagues. Those are their numbers: 16, 14, 21, 26, another 21, and 28. So for our number to be 17% and most of these numbers to be higher, we certainly know that there probably are underrepresented areas. Those are going to be the programs that require licensure of some sort, because being DACA or undocumented, prevent students from completing those programs and actually working in those. So another important factor for us is that a third of our population is comprised of high school students, and over 40% of that population identifies as Hispanic or Latino. So our campus demographics, it's kind of difficult to see here, but I think if you look closely you could see it, that there is an inverse relationship between our demographics. So as the amount of white students has declined, the number of Hispanic and Latino students has increased. So enrollment is down in general. Community colleges, ours is rebounding at this point, but it is our Hispanic and Latino population that has helped us maintain our enrollment. We have increased 4% from spring to fall in our Hispanic Latino population. So obviously it's important to take into consideration the schools that are feeding our campus community here, and overall look at the picture of public education in North Carolina. So all of this information, and if you're unfamiliar with his work, I would suggest looking at it. Dr. James Johnson, he's a demographer at UNC Kenan-Flagler, and he put together this report, North Carolina's Disruptive Demographics, Implications for K-12 and Higher Education. These are the numbers from 2000 to 2009, and so we could start seeing a trend here. And I extracted this. There's a lot of other information there, but I just compared the Hispanic with white enrollment. So we can see from 2000 to 2009, the white enrollment in North Carolina public schools was down 0.2%, but the Hispanic population increased by 171.5, essentially. So that, again, helps us see trends. Looking at 2000 to 2016, the same report, we can see an even more significant drop in the white population, and adding about 5 years increases essentially doubles the increase in the Hispanic population. So from the 2000-2001 school year to 2015-2016 school year, we had 325% increase in Hispanic and Latino population. So, and that just solidifies the importance that exists in building relationships with that population. So looking at the schools that students typically come from at our college, we have Surry County Schools. That's our largest school system, and we do have several in the 2 counties. They are 25% Hispanic and Latino population. Yadkin County Schools, they are 25% Hispanic and Latino. We have Mount Airy City Schools. They are 20%. Elkin City Schools, they are also 20%. We do have a charter school, and I did not include it because historically, I mean, not across the board, but typically minority enrollment in charter schools tends to be pretty low, and it is with this school. It's 6%. So some of the things that are really important for us to keep in mind, and this is kind of enter the generalizations that I warned about a little bit, but I found them to be basically true. Education is not a singular decision. So you might have a student come in who is not Hispanic or Latino, and they say they want to change their major, and you just fill out the form, and it's that simple. From my experience, it is not that simple for Hispanic and Latino students. They have a lot of pressure, which I will talk about that quite a bit. But because of that pressure, a decision to change a major or a career path is not something that most Hispanic and Latino students will do without input from their parents. And so, of course, in the college setting, we have FERPA, but many of these students do want their parents involved in decisions that they're making. So that's a cultural factor that is important for us to be aware of. And then extracurricular involvement. So, often, and this is the case for community college students across the board, the more involved they are, the more likely they are to complete and, be successful because they feel like they are, invested in the campus community. So extracurricular activities that appeal to students who are Hispanic and Latino is really important. I will talk about some of the things that we've done, some of the things that we plan to do. Again, culturally relevant student activities. We do have a Latin dance. We're trying to do intramural soccer. Those are things that tend to, again, generalization, but it is something we've found to be true. Also culturally, many Hispanic and Latino students and their parents are fiscally conservative, so they're searching for a great deal. So community college obviously fits the bill for that. And then I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about the pressure to excel and the need to take advantage of opportunities that I have experienced with some of my students. I was actually reading some papers last night, and a few things just jumped out at me, and one student said, "It's the least I can do," and that was work hard in school, and that was a direct quote. I've had, in the last week, I've had 2 students who are Hispanic students who have come to my office, and they've said, "Well, can you tell me a little bit about," one said political science, and I said, "Sure." So I told her, what you study in political science and some of the careers that you might be able to do, and she looked at me and said that she was really interested in policy and pursuing that study, but her parents wanted her to be a doctor because that's what was best for their family. That's what she was capable of doing, and anything less would not be acceptable. And I said, well, maybe you could, when you transfer to a 4-year school, start taking some policy classes, take some government classes, and you can find a way to include that with the education that you're pursuing in medicine. But it's really difficult to hear students that feel like they don't have the agency to change their major because of things that are expected of them. I actually have a student that I've been really close to. She is finishing her first semester at UNC Chapel Hill right now. And she too was expected that she would be a doctor or a scientist of some sort, really gifted student. But she wanted to be a writer. And she and her mother had a lot of conversations about it. And I have since met her mother. I do know her mother. And it wasn't pride for her mother. It was she just wanted her daughter to be successful, and pursuing something in the sciences was a way that she believed it could happen. She was worried that her daughter, who didn't start speaking English until she went to kindergarten at 5 years old, she was afraid she wouldn't be able to be successful as a writer. She is able to be successful as a writer, and she, again, is finishing her first semester at UNC Chapel Hill as a double major, English and psychology, and her mother is fine with that now. I also read this in a paper last night, and I thought it was really fitting for this, and this student wrote, "Growing up in a Mexican household, education has always been valued. My parents have always mentioned the importance of education and how it can greatly impact our future." And he wrote "our," meaning his entire family. So again, I think that pressure to excel is something that we need to be aware of when we are interacting with our Hispanic and Latino students. So some of the steps that we've taken at Surry, we realized that we had students who had unmet needs, and we needed to make it a priority to help them. Outreach, organizations, events, and commitment, and I will talk about those specifically. I saw that Vivian is on here, and Vivian has been integral in what we've been able to do at Surry. She actually was one of the first people that we reached out to when we realized that we had an issue that we didn't know what to do about. So I think it's kind of fitting that she's on this webinar. So outreach, we talk to experts and leaders, and Vivian is one of those people. And we also set up at Hispanic and Latino community events, and we have our own. So we thought that it was important to establish this welcoming environment. And I do have some pictures there. So one of the first things I thought would be important to do is set up at our Latin festival that we have in Dobson. And I didn't have time to get us there. Be 3 years ago at this point. So I called my friends up and I said, all right, we're going to a Latin festival, and that's us there on the left. And and we've now set up at the Latin festival the last 2 years as organizations and also as college. To recruit, answer questions, but I've often said it's not as important whether we have anybody enroll. I just want to send the message that we truly are a community college and they're part of our community. So in the other picture we have a Latin dance. The person who's leading the Latin dance, he is one of my best friends, as you could tell from the previous picture. He was also at the Latin festival. He now teaches at the college in our physical therapy assistant program, and he does have a bachelor's degree in dance. So we have a Latin dance night. We've had it every semester since last fall, when we're actually planning ours for the spring. And notoriously, like most community colleges, events that are outside of normal hours usually aren't attended very well. We had over 100 people at our first Latin dance night, and people have been, they ask, when are we going to have it again? So people are interested in it. So we have been able to do some of the things that we've done through some organizations on campus. We had the Male Minority Success Initiative, and we were able to use, just under that umbrella, to it was kind of our impetus to go out and recruit people who are Hispanic and Latino origin, and it was grant funded. We do not have that anymore, but it hasn't really changed our focus. So we've been able to maintain this, making sure that we're including all people of our community. And then we have Scholars of Global Distinction, which is a program that's affiliated with Worldview at UNC Chapel Hill. I do lead that program. I did not lead the Male Minority Success Initiative, but I did work really closely with the person who led that, and so we did a lot of joint things here. We have some pictures on the right, and they might be hard to see, but they are our Scholars of Global Distinction, and some of them, and some of our male Minority Success Initiative participants, and we took a trip to Atlanta, and like to maybe have gone someplace further away, but we did a lot of historical things there, and did a lot of bonding, and these are some of the leaders on our campus, and you could see that there's a variety of racial makeup here. We have been fortunate enough at Surry this past year to have 3 students who were named 20 under 20 Latinx Ed, and one of them is here, and I came down stairs at the hotel the morning that we were getting ready to leave, and here she was with a family from South Korea, and she had taught herself how to speak Korean, and she was having a conversation with this family. So we have students who are interested, and we have students who are leaders, and that certainly has helped our initiatives. We are in the process of starting Hispanic Student Association, because with 17% of our population being Hispanic, be a great opportunity for us to have students who come together and talk about things that are really unique to their experience. So we are in the planning phases of that. So events, that's the other thing that we've done. We've had some large events, Latin dance, and we had an access event which we call Dreams or Sueños, and Juana was there, and Vivian was there, and other people were there, and I'm still amazed by the people who were there at that event. We had over 100 people there. They were eager to find out how they or how their children could attend school, so there's really an interest in higher education. We have small intercultural events. Last year we averaged an event every 2 weeks. This year we've had 17 events this semester alone. And we do utilize our campus community for the events because, like most places, we don't have a lot of funding to pay people to come for events. So we have a biology instructor from Slovakia, so she does an event on Slovakia. We have a librarian who's from Colombia. We have a communication instructor who traveled to Ireland. So we simply utilize people here on campus that we know are in the community, and we have these events, and they are widely attended. I would say anywhere from 25 to 100 people, and those tend to be during the day. But I think really the value in those events is that they have increased curiosity on campus. They've increased acceptance for people, things, ideas that might be different than one's own. And I think it really offers students a chance to be proud of who they are. And that has, for me, been one of the most gratifying parts of the work that we're doing, is seeing that students, hold their head just a little bit higher, and they feel like, we can't control the narrative that happens in the news, can't control a lot of some of the perceptions that I think people feel like large groups of people have. about Hispanic and Latinos, but we can control fostering this idea of students being proud of who they are, and I've definitely seen it. So, and these are just some pictures, and so we have some students who are international, and I try to do an event with holidays and let them talk about holidays in their country of origin. And we also have people do, we have a student who does Mexico. She's not from Mexico, but her family is. She presents. We have a faculty member with strong ties to Germany, so she presents German holidays. One of the first events that we try to have every semester is a cultural bias event, understanding cultural bias. So we try to set the framework throughout the semester of equity and acceptance. The fourth picture over on the right, that's our librarian from Columbia. The next pictures are pictures from the Access event, the Dreams or Sueños event, and we have, we're very fortunate to have a director of financial aid who is bilingual, so she's able to help our students who, their parents are Spanish speakers, and that's been really great. We did invite Consul General of Mexico. She did attend, and I think that obviously added a lot of legitimacy to our event, and it helped people who wanted to attend know that it was safe to attend. So some of the keys to success in building trust and relationships, and small gestures mean more than their effort, and I will talk about that. Communication is always key. Give Spanish a try. I am not fluent, but I try to be prepared to answer some questions in Spanish, or at least have someone who can help me. Material in Spanish. So going back to one of the things that I mentioned earlier, it is not a singular decision if a student wants to pursue a different career. So obviously having material in Spanish is helpful so they can share it with their parents. And then also, be prepared to cater to your audience. We might prepare an event for, an access event for Hispanic and Latino students, and think we're going to do the event in English, but then realize they have a lot of parents there, and then switch to Spanish, which is exactly what happened at our event that we had in the spring, our Dreams event. And there were people there from the college who didn't understand anything that was said because they do not speak Spanish, and I thought on some level that was fitting. It was a good experience for those people to acknowledge how difficult it might be for some of our population to be unable to communicate. So, and this actually was Vivian's idea. Again, glad she's on the call. She said that sometimes people aren't sure if we support them. And she said a sticker would be a good way to do that. So, and if we were together, face-to-face, I would give you a sticker because I do buy a lot of stickers, and I can tell you that they do mean something. I'm going to share a little story with you that actually was just brought to my attention last week. So these are just a few doors around campus. Mine is the bottom right one. So I have the rainbow sticker, and then I have no human is illegal, and then I think it says I support immigrants and refugees. So we are making a concerted effort on campus to work on diversity and inclusion and make sure we are diverse and inclusive. And we had a meeting last week, and we brought some students, and we turned the floor over to the students and asked them if they had anything that they wanted to say. And one of the students said that she came to my office and she saw "No Human is Illegal," and she took a picture and she sent it to her mom. And then she went on to say that she needed to write a narrative essay for me. And she wanted to write about her dad's status, and she knew she could write that story because she had seen my door. She had seen that sticker. And I looked up and I knew she was crying because I could hear it. And then I looked up and the first three people that I saw were crying. And then I quickly looked down because I didn't want to join them. But I don't know if I truly knew the magnitude of that, what a little sticker could do. And I buy all of these stickers and I have them for anybody on campus who wants one. Too bad I don't own stock in Redbubble, because that is where I buy all of my stickers. So you can go there and get some and have them for your campus. But I think, and that's a very small effort to put a sticker on a door. And I have them in case my door is open, which it normally is. I have them on the inside of the door as well. I have them in my office just in case you missed one as you were coming in the door. So I am grateful that Vivian made that suggestion to us. So some of the other ways I think we've been able to be successful is we've just promoted diversity in classes in the campus community. One of the ways that we have promoted diversity in classes is by trying to globalize the classes, and globalize in our definition is simply anything outside of mainstream U.S. culture, and we do have 200 plus classes that are globalized. Communicate, I think that's really important. It's important to communicate with people out in the community. It's important to communicate within the school. Super important to communicate with the students themselves, and because they know what they need, and they know if they're getting it. And if you develop a relationship that you send the message that you're interested, they will be honest with you. And ask questions of those students. Ask questions of people that you might, that you think know something that you do not. And we've asked a lot of questions. And then, staying student-centered. It's really important that we not lose sight of the student, and that's kind of what I said about setting up at the Latin Festival. It wasn't as important to me that we get people to come enroll here, though that's certainly important, but the students who are current students, I wanted them to see us there setting up and be able to be proud that their school was there and cared about their community. So I think we have to think about how students are going to receive the information, and then be empathetic. I don't know what it's like to have to be the person who lives out the dreams of their parents, but I know that it is something that our students face. And then, being culturally aware, just understand some things that are unique or different from your own about your students' culture. And then some of the things that we've learned is that students are afraid or embarrassed to ask questions that are unique to their legal status. And one of the ways around that is to simply provide those sort of access events so we can help answer, anticipate what the questions are going to be, and ask those questions and answer those that they may not feel like they can ask. And then RDS Residency Determination status is tough. So the student that I mentioned earlier who's at UNC Chapel Hill, I tried to help her every step of the way with FAFSA and RDS, and it came back that she was, she'd been determined to be an out-of-state student. She has lived at her address longer than I have lived at my address. And she had to, and her father was willing to do this. He had to, go get bills from a telephone company and I think utility company, and he was willing to do that. But there, there might be some who would be unwilling to do that because of their own fears. Scholarships do exist for Hispanic and Latino students regardless of legal status. I have a list. I know Juana has a list, and I know she is also great about sharing those on social media. So if you don't follow her on social media, definitely do that so you can get that information. High schools and early college and college and career promise programs, they're a great way to get students enrolled and also to help them see that, either you can help them get a career at the community college, a credential for a career at the community college, or you can help them see a way that they can transfer, again, regardless of status. And, all students need encouragement, but especially those who do not have support or assistance at home. And I want to clarify that because I know that of all of the students that I know, their parents care tremendously about them and they want them to be successful, but they don't know how to support or assist them in the ways that they need assistance for college. So the same student that I was mentioning who is at UNC Chapel Hill, so it came time for her to go to orientation this summer, and her parents, her dad works the hours that she would need to be at orientation. Her mom, she drives, but she would not drive to Chapel Hill from Dobson. So I took her to orientation, and I stayed with her, and I tried to answer her questions. And I'm certainly not her parent, but I certainly was proud to be there with her because she certainly is living both her dream and her parents' dream by getting that education. So the type of encouragement and support and assistance that those students may need might be really different than the type of assistance and support that other students need, and that experts are willing to help. Vivian has been extremely helpful. Juana, other people have, anytime we've had a question, people have been willing to provide feedback and help us, and we are grateful for that. But I think that's something that everyone should take away, that if someone knows how to do something or they know how to help, they're almost always willing to share that information. All right, and some of our current actions that we're working on and some future plans, and I mentioned some of these before, but fun and informative events. So we are trying to do intramurals, soccer, ping pong. We do have the intercultural events, and we hope to continue our access events. Peer mentoring, we do have some tremendous leaders, student leaders on our campus, and to utilize their skills to help other students certainly is something that we are working toward, and they do help mentor students, but we don't have a formal program for that, but we would like to have that. We are working on faculty and staff training. We have community involvement. I like to say if I'm invited somewhere, I go, and I do. So Hispanic Task Force in Mount Airy, they fill me in on what happens, and there are always so many questions about education, about higher education for students. We also go to community and Hispanic nights at the high schools. We have a partnership with our dual language immersion elementary school, and we have students who intern there. Migrant education program. I haven't been to that yet, but I am going to their February meeting. And we do, again, we have a presence and we actively recruit and or just have a presence in the community. And then we also, I am one of the representatives from the school who's involved with the system office initiative to recruit and help Hispanic and Latino students succeed at the community college. So we don't have much time, but I do want to share a couple of just these are all from students. So this was from a student who you can see is not Hispanic or Latino, and she wanted to come to our Dreams event. She said, I do not speak fluent Spanish. As someone who has struggled navigating higher education due to my own parents' lack of involvement and knowledge, I know just how important this event can be. I did not have a language barrier to add to my fears of college, and I was so mortified to attend that I waited a semester after applying merely to get my nerve up to step foot on campus. I can empathize with the fears this event has created to overcome. And then throughout all of my years of school, I noticed that we separate ourselves into groups for many reasons. For me, it was mainly because it was a group that I felt the most comfortable with and had similar experiences to me. As we grow up, we continue to do the same thing and separate ourselves from other people. I've grown up in Dobson all my life, and it hasn't been until recently that I've been seeing more of this new community. It first started with the Latin Festival that I saw everybody together. And then we had the DACA event, and that just really showed me something new. All of this time I had thought that it was a struggle that we had to endure by ourselves, but it's not true. There are other people in our community who are just as interested in helping us. No longer was it two groups, it's now one group fighting for the same goal. And there are others, and you're going to have access to those, I think. So you can read through those. Well, this one, I don't know, I'll just say this one quickly and then we'll do questions. I left the night feeling very proud of the community that I belong to, but this event showed me a new community. As people, we usually separate ourselves into our own little groups, but on that night we were all together. It's not something that I've really seen before, but we all felt the sense of community that night. That's why it was so meaningful to me. So I will I'd love to hear, any questions that you have, but also any things that you're doing at your school that you think have helped build trust and relationships with the Hispanic and Latino community.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask the question in the chat box. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the question or the comment, and then Sarah will respond to those questions. And Sarah, there is I think it's a comment from Vivian. She says, first, congratulations to Sarah. By the way, I did not pay Sarah to say my name as many times as she has. Like she said, we work together in the community, and I'm always happy to help anyone who asks. We all learn together and from each other to be better equipped to help our communities feel inclusive. Everyone deserves to have an equitable education across the state, our state. I'm happy to see that the conversations we have with Surry have been taken further. Congratulations to you guys. And so that comment was from Vivian.
Thank you, Vivian.
Sarah, I did have a question. When you were showing the stickers and how you're able to post the stickers on your door, and I think it's a great idea and story that you shared about the student who came and saw the stickers and that made her feel welcome and made her feel that she could share the story with you. My question is, I know that Vivian was the one that suggested it, but how did you have to get permission from the supervisor to pose those questions? Is this something that you just did with a group of students on your campus? And I'm asking just because, we may have some individuals from community colleges that are a little bit conservative. And so what did you have to do to provide those, to do that on your campus? And do you have any suggestions for others that might be on the call who may want to implement something like that at their school?
Okay. Well, I did not ask permission from anyone. That was the first part of the question, right?
Yes, it was.
Okay. I did not. I just started doing it. I mean, it's not something that I advertised, but it was something that, I went around to people, because I do lead our Global Competence Committee, so we do talk about diversity and things of that nature in there. And so I first offered it, to groups of people that I knew, and then, others heard about it and came by and said, can I have a sticker? And I didn't ask permission, and I'm sure after this people are going to know that didn't know before, but I simply, these are the students that we're teaching, and I want them to know that I support them. I know that other people want them to know that we support them. So it's just something that we did because I know that our numbers certainly support us displaying this sort of support for students. I mean, they are the students that we're teaching, and I wouldn't want someone in my class to think that I did not support them. So that's just, I don't know that answers the question. I just did it.
No, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And again, I don't know really the policies. I think it's really great that you were able to do it and also have other colleagues on your campus that join you and having the stickers on and ensuring that students are safe on campus. There's a comment from Shantia H. I hope I said the name right. Very interesting information. Thank you for all your hard work. Congratulations. And so it says, Juana, thank you very much for creating the webinars. Thank you. All right, so if we don't have any questions coming through, Sarah, we can go to the next slide, please, if you don't mind. The next slide. Well, as you all know, this concludes our CFNC Spanish Services webinar for this fall. I want to thank all of the presenters. Thank you, Sarah, for taking the time and sharing all the great initiatives that Surry Community College is doing on campus to engage in the Latino community and to provide an inclusive and welcoming environment. And so I love the dance that you talked about. Is that open to the community or is it open to students?
I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry.
The dance that you do, the community.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's open to the community. Yeah.
That I really love that. I mean, I haven't heard about something like that. So I really love that we're doing that on campus. And so that's a really great idea. Something you shared ideas that other colleges can implement. Anyone that's in K-12, some of those things could potentially be implemented on their campuses or their schools as well. But thank you so much again, Sarah, for sharing your knowledge and all the great things that you all are doing on campus. I also want to thank April Query, who is the CFNC Regional and Community Services Manager, who has been phenomenal, who has been supporting the webinars behind the scenes. She's the one setting out the invitation, setting up the webinars, and setting up the PowerPoint. So thank you so much, April, for all of your hard work. I couldn't have done this without you. And again, thank you all for taking the time to join us. We will be planning to do another series in the spring, another webinar series in the spring. So whenever we send the survey and the PowerPoint, we want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear what other topics you would be interested in learning about. And then if there's anyone on here who may be interested in doing a webinar, let us know. But again, please make sure that you're responding to the survey and giving us your feedback. And that would really help us for the next webinar. All right, everyone, thank you again. And the webinar recording will be available on CFNC website. And have a wonderful day. Thank you.